Alright, so slightly different topic than yesterday, because I don't really remember where I left off with what I was talking about yesterday, but so I'll just shift gears a little bit for right now, maybe get back to that later. But like, I'm gonna also try to see if I can like hold this in like a position that's not entirely awkward, but I doubt that's gonna last for very long. Um, Obviously, there was just releases from WWE, a bunch of them, which was something that was already kind of a foregone conclusion after they did the merger. I'm not really going to talk about that. I'm actually going to talk about something else though, related to wrestling though, because it just kind of came to my head a little bit. Um, that's regarding like CM Punk, right? So like CM Punk, big deal, right? Always been a big deal. Filled with controversy and uh, always at the top of the list of wrestling news, and he was able to do that even for 7 years before he came back to AEW, or before he joined AEW rather. And it's so crazy because he's like maybe one of the only wrestlers that I can think of where that's a thing. Where you've reached such a status that people just sort of clamor for you to return. And I mean, I kind of know, I understand why, but that's not why what I want to talk about. CM Punk, man, no matter where you come from in terms of your feelings towards him, his more recent controversies or whatever, and which resulted in his firing and suspension and injuries and all that stuff, it's sort of recontextualized a lot of the stuff that happened in like 2013, 2014 when he walked out of WWE, right? But like, here's the thing. I've discussed this kind of in the wrestling board on the Discord. I don't know if I fully blame CM Punk for a lot of these issues that have kind of come up of late. Like, yes, CM Punk is the center of all of these controversies, starting from the Young Buck and Kenny Omega situation, him going on a rant. You know, that was pretty. That was a pretty big thing. He initiated that, yeah, but he initiated it for what reason? Why did he initiate that? Think about that for a second. Why did he initiate that? Because the fervor in the air was that people believed that he was responsible for putting Colt Cabana on Ring of Honor. Whether that was true or not, I don't know. He, of course, denied it, but I can understand where he's coming from. Like, when people are talking shit about you and you're aware of it, you're probably going to address it, especially if it's something that you don't believe is true. And then, of course, him saying, hey, if you have a problem with me, come and deal with me, let's go. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, which resulted in Brawl Out, which kind of overshadowed his original point. But staying on target a little bit here, fast forward to the most recent event with Jack Perry and how he got pissed off at Jack Perry for being a dick, right? For saying, denying him the ability to use glass, I guess, and him, throwing a fit about it on TV. And then CM Punk reacting to that. Once again, a reaction to something that he really didn't have any, it's not like he asked for these reactions, you know what I mean? They're just things that these people have been saying that have made him react. He is a very reactionary person, I'm kind of fast forwarding to ahead a little bit too much, but like, so like WWE, right? Like, you don't hear about physical altercations. You don't hear about people bitching and complaining. Well, you do hear about bitching and complaining, but like, you don't hear it as much in WWE as you do in AEW. And again, this is a point I kind of brought up in the wrestling board, but like, at the end of the day, like, I think there's a very specific reason for why that is, why you're hearing more bullshit coming out of AEW than you are of WWE, and that's simply because AEW is filled with indie talent. AEW has people in it that are not built for mainstream. And what I mean by that is that by the time that most wrestlers are ready for a place like WWE, they have given their life, essentially, to the indies. Or maybe not. Maybe they've been built in the WWE. I mean, that's also a possibility, too. But for those who are signed with WWE, who built their careers outside of WWE, you know, they have worked to get to that point, mentally, physically, what have you, to impress WWE enough to where they will sign you. And there's obviously some people that slip through the cracks here or there. But like, at the end of the day, when you're in WWE, you are in a mentally different place than you were, I don't know, when you first started. You know, by the time that you get to WWE, you have essentially, quote-unquote, made it. Regardless of the quality of the wrestling or the style of wrestling, the idea was always, once you get to WWE, you've made it. And it's kind of like similar to, NoPixels, that, if you put in a very good application, if you show a basic understanding of something and, you know what you're doing, you'll probably be accepted. But then there's a whole bunch of people who aren't accepted because they don't get it. And my point here is that I think a lot of wrestlers in AEW simply don't get it. They don't get it. And it's not necessarily their own fault. It's just the way that it is. Like, the attitude in the indie scene is incredibly probably toxic. I guess I hate that word. I hate that word so much. But it is kind of the consensus is that the attitude in the indies is everybody has control kind of over their own kind of gimmick. Egos are explosive. Samoa Joe said it himself in a recent interview where he basically kind of just said, like, he had no real reaction to the Jack Perry and CM Punk situation because he'd seen stuff like that all the time back in the indies. So, like, it's like a common thing, altercations between wrestlers, right? And WWE is unique because there aren't that many altercations between wrestlers in WWE. Or at least none that you really hear that much about, or if they are, they shake hands because they all want to be there. Typically, they want to be there. And they want to, not fuck it up and get themselves fired or whatever. There's a certain level of professionalism that WWE obviously adheres to and, seeks out. And they want to ensure everybody is on the same level in terms of personality, so to speak. And that is essentially why I think that, once you get to WWE, mentally, you are at your apex, so to speak. I mean, obviously, there's always going to be problems, and there's going to be cracks in the armor. You know, things are going to happen that you don't necessarily like, and I'm sure you're going to hear about it. But you don't hear. But the reality is, you don't hear about it that much in WWE. You just don't hear it. AEW, you hear it all the time. Now, why is that? Because AEW is just indie wrestling. That's what it is. It's just a bunch of indies. You know, the only thing that differentiates AEW from the normal indie scene is the fact that it's run by a billionaire and has money. And that's the only reason. The only real reason why it has the power that it does is because it has someone who has money behind it. If it didn't, it would just be another indie promotion lost in the noise, lost in the shuffle. And you wouldn't really be hearing about these conflicts. But because it's on a global stage, because of a billionaire, you're going to hear about this shit. You're going to hear about it all the time. Now, granted, you didn't hear about it immediately, but it started happening as time trudged forward. And it's because most of these people who have been signed to AEW are not fit for that. I'm not saying that they're all not fit. Some are clearly fit. MJF is pretty fucking great. But there's a lot of people in AEW that you probably would never see in WWE. And there's a lot of people in AEW that you would have never seen on the global stage had it not been for Tony Khan. So my point here is that the attitudes of all these wrestlers, all these indie talents suddenly being put on a grand stage, almost, not quite, but almost up there to the level of WWE, that means something. But, none of their attitudes are in the right place. And there's also the fact that Tony Khan just likes to play with his toys, but that's neither here nor there. But it's just kind of facts, is that, the attitude is not going to improve overnight. Like, a lot of these guys were given these deals, honestly, just because they wanted to stick it to WWE. That's quite literally how AEW was born. Everything else just kind of came, after. Everything else just kind of was wung, They wung it. Is that even a word, wunging it? Well, they winged it. And none of those people, not all of them, obviously some of them, but a lot of those people are not built to be WWE type performers. Even Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. I think Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks would probably do well in WWE, but there is also a reason why they haven't signed with WWE their entire career. And I like to believe it's similar to the reason for why Sting did not sign with WWE for the entirety of his career up until 2014. And, it's because they probably just didn't want to. They hear about how WWE runs things and they don't want to be involved because they're in that indie mindset. Kenny and the Young Bucks are in an indie mindset, and they are clearly immature. They are very immature because they picked a fight with CM Punk, which rounds me back to CM Punk a little bit, in that CM Punk is a reactionary person. Everything that he responded to, whether it be physically or on the mic, they were all reactionary. They were all responses to things that were said to him or murmured in the locker room of AEW. This didn't happen really in WWE, at least, in any sort of fundamentally large way other than his walkout. I feel like the only reason it really happened is, again, because he believes he was called out on numerous occasions, and so he responded in kind. You can say that his responses were bad, and they shouldn't have done them, and, yeah, he probably deserves to be fired for whatever took place between him and Jack Perry and Tony Khan, to make Tony Khan think that, oh, his life was in danger. But, the truth is that, CM Punk is just responding to the attitudes of these individuals, be it, hold on, be it, in WWE, or be it in AEW, and, everywhere else. I kind of losing my train of thought there. I had like a four-way stop back there. Hold on. All right. Be it a... Where was I? Okay. There's like a whole bunch of people that were driving by that, were waiting for me to go by, so I had to do that. Like I said, this is off the cuff, man. We're telling it like it is. We're doing it. We're doing it live. That's what we're doing here. But CM Punk's reactions have always been, the reactions of a guy who's quite temperamental. But again, you didn't really hear about these reactions per se in a very outwardly real way in WWE. You only really heard these reactions once he got to AEW because, like CM Punk said, he works with children. And I think there's something to be said about that. Because the mentality of a lot of these wrestlers, and you hear other stories too from like Britt Baker and like a variety of different talents in AEW about, egos and, all kinds of annoying shit, especially with, like I said, Britt Baker, and then there was, I can't remember her name. She was a champion for a while. I'm sure, Chris, you could probably tell me. You could probably tell me, remind me of the name of that one. But I can't remember her name right now, but she was the champion for a while. She got accused of sandbagging. Neither here nor there. But it's funny, though, because it's just like you hear about all these things, all these different egos, all these different people in AEW. You don't hear it in WWE. And that's one of the reasons why I think that when CM Punk does go to WWE, or if he goes to WWE, and I'm still kind of iffy on whether or not that's going to happen, it remains to be seen whether or not a situation similar to the situations that were presented in AEW will occur. I'm kind of the opinion that if he does go there, and granted I'm wrong about many things, but I'll guess that it's less likely in WWE. It might be more likely now than it was back then, but I feel like if he went to WWE, he would be surrounding himself with people that are more like-minded, and less childish. But then again, that remains to be seen. And again, you can criticize CM Punk all you want for the way that he's handled a lot of these things. But again, everything that he has done has been a reaction to something else. And when people react to something that is negative, they're going to react in kind. They're going to react negatively. That's just the way it is. And yeah, like, it's just like, You know, what's the phrase? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes, you know? If you're not expecting to get punched in the fucking mouth for saying something that should get you punched in the fucking mouth, then what are you doing? But yeah, that's kind of my whole thought on, I guess, CM Punk and the attitude of the wrestlers from AEW, and just the fact that I think a lot of them just are not fit for that environment because that's not how they've been brought up, you know what I mean? And not all of them were going to go to WWE. But when you suddenly thrust that element into a WWE like setting, you're kind of going to get what you pay for. At least that's what I think, anyway. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me on today's walk. Uh, I don't. I'm not gonna force these walks to happen all the time, or these walks where I'm talking to you guys. But you know, I don't know. I kind of enjoy them. So whether I do another one or not tomorrow, I don't know. We'll see. Uh, I'm probably gonna make them a little bit more streamlined, a little bit shorter, instead of having it be like a full-on 20-minute video every single time because it takes like 30 years to upload to YouTube. But you know, we'll figure that out. Anyway, appreciate you guys, and we'll talk again soon. Bye bye.